as I've been long. The Black Lotus clan sends their regards.
Is this a challenge? It's promise!
Your reputation precedes you.
Ha ha! Perhaps, but you're still just a pussy.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. They've made it official. Thibeault will be challenging reigning unified middleweight champion Desley Robinson of Australia in Orlando, Florida, August 8th, on the undercard of Shernika Johnson versus Dina Thorsland. Big step up in competition for the standout amateur, the Olympian Thibeault of Canada. Tall drink of water, tall drink of boxing. BoxRec has her registered at a very moderate 5'10", but in the ring, she looks like she could be 6'1". I don't know that BoxRec is entirely accurate on this one. I anticipate the night of there will be a noticeable disparity in height and length between the two combatants, that maybe Thibeault is a little more than just 5'10", 29 years old to the defending champion, Desley Robinson, who's 38, sporting a professional record of 12 wins with 3 losses and no draws, 4 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 15 professional bouts. Even though she only has 4 recorded knockouts, she's a very hard puncher. If you've seen Desley in action, you'll know you don't want to let her hit you clean. Same would apply to Thibeault, who's a lot less experienced at 4-0 with 3 KOs. Big step up in class for her, but thus is often the case for these standout amateurs and Olympians. They don't have to go through as much filler as your average professional boxer. And so even if Thibeault is a late starter in the paid ranks, should she win this fight, she'll make up for that lost time, having become a unified champion in just 5 fights and 2 years as a pro. They're really less than 2 years. Last in action, in September of the previous year, opposite the ring, Christina Mazzata, who she stopped in the first round of a contest scheduled for 10. She was actually supposed to be fighting earlier this year, but her opponent dropped out due to what I think were visa issues. Still, her last fight was recent enough that I don't anticipate Tam is going to have any cobwebs or ring rust to shake off. She's about as ready as she's going to be at 4-0. Very active in the previous year, fighting 3 times, once in March, again in July, then again in September. Something similar would apply to the defending champion Desley Robinson, who fought in April of the previous year, then again in October, then in May of this one, currently on a 7-fight winning streak after having dropped a decision to Lonnie Daniels and subsequently Kay Scott. It's also important to note that Kay Scott and Desley Robinson are the only 2 champions at this weight. The 4 alphabet titles are split between them. And it is also important to note that even though Desley Robinson lost her initial meeting with Kay Scott, she avenged that loss in December of 2024, so currently they're 1-1 with each other. They need a tiebreaker. Though before it can become about a rubber match with the only other champion at this weight, Kay Scott, Desley Robinson has to make it through Thibeault, and I'm not convinced that she's going to. Experience would have to go to the champion, that goes without saying, and she's got some power to boot, but so does Tam. She's got more fights, more rounds in the bank, and thus more experience. But what Tam has more of than Desley is ring coverage. She's got a lot of height and a lot of length, which gives her a lot of ring coverage. She can cover a lot of ground in just a few steps, and because of her wingspan, she doesn't need to be close to Desley to touch her. Her best punches are her straight punches. She can generate devastating power when she gets full extension on the arm. I think she's going to make it difficult and dangerous for Desley to get close to her, because Desley is more of a mid-range fighter. You see her in action, Desley's often closer to the target than Tam needs to be due to her wingspan. Now, what's got them on an even keel is, even though Tam is younger and fresher and taller and longer, Desley's more experienced. She's got rounds in the bank. She's used to going the distance, where I don't think Tam is. Of course she's not. She's never been 10 rounds before, where Desley's done that a good number of times. So if Tam doesn't get an early knockout, like she has in most of her 4 fights, is her engine going to hold up? Is her boxing? Desley's got to try to drag this out. Get Tam into deep waters where she's never ventured, and then explode on her, because by then she might be tired, where Tam needs to hang back, stay behind the straight punches, and work off the counter. Make Desley Robinson come to her. Set her up. Desley's never been knocked out, but I think Tam packs a big enough punch that if she lands clean, like she has on these other girls, she can take her out, she can put her down, but it's gonna take some work, because as stated, this is a big step up in class for Tam. Where it's just another day at the office for Desley, I don't think it's a coincidence that they matched her against the Canadian amateur standout Mary Spencer in her last fight. A tall one, like Tam, who's also Canadian, who's also very tall, very long, very strong. That fight with Mary Spencer that Desley won was a rehearsal for this one, with the difference being that Tam is younger, is fresher, and I'm leaning towards her to win. She may have to work for it, might even have to go through some adversity, but I like Tim Thibeault, and I like her by way of knockout. Men's lightweight news. Unbeaten up-and-comer Floyd Schofield, rather, Floyd Schofield's father, via his Twitter account, said Monday the negotiations are done and Gervonta Davis will step down. And the new, for the haters in the back. Like I've been telling you for 2 years, Tank Davis will not fight Kid Austin. That came out of Tank's own mouth. Well, Tank is otherwise preoccupied right now. Much respect to Tank. Enjoy your retirement, like I've been saying for years. When Kid gets in position to fight Tank, Tank will retire and won't fight Kid. Pop Schofield. Was I right? Hey haters, auntie out. The way Floyd Schofield Sr. is framing it, it's almost like he's trying to say that they chased Gervonta Davis into retirement when Lamont Roach did that more than they did. I mean, Gervonta Davis started off last year saying he wanted last year to be his last year in the sport, before Floyd got in position. Gervonta was already talking about retirement, so they can't take all the credit for that. In tandem with Gervonta Davis's legal situation, he still hasn't taken care of that domestic abuse case that's been dangling over his head for months now. We don't know what's going to happen with that, but it is a little hard to imagine that you're going to negotiate fights and have fights while you still have that to deal with.
I'd do some time.
I never really thought this fight was going to happen for that reason. And I don't even think it's a fight that the Schofields were after more than the title. They were after the title. They wanted to force Gervonta Davis into a situation where it's fight or flight. You either fight or abdicate. But they weren't actually expecting a fight. As stated, Gervonta Davis has been talking about retiring for over a year now, and he's got a lot of other stuff outside of the ring going on. I'm not in the business of apologizing for Gervonta Davis, but those are the facts. And that's why I never expected this fight to happen, and I don't think it's a fight that the Schofields were after. They were insufferable before they had a belt.
It's gonna be even worse now.
I mean, these are the guys who asked for $10 million to fight Abdullah Mason. So what do you think they were asking for to fight Gervonta Davis? Is that a part of the reason they were unable to reach a deal? Because of the kind of money the Schofields were looking for?
If you're expecting somebody to kick out $10 million for an Abdullah Mason fight, what the fuck were you expecting from a Gervonta Davis fight? Gervonta Davis ain't Canelo Alvarez, you know. You don't get a Canelo-sized bag for Gervonta.
That's saying, how much of these negotiations falling apart are due to the Schofields' financial demands? What were they expecting? And if they can't reach a deal within the free negotiation period, does it not then go to a purse bid?
Yeah, it could in theory.
It would if Gervonta Davis actually gave a damn about keeping that WBA title, but I don't think he does. And I don't know that the PBC can afford to go into a purse bid situation between them and Golden Boy.
BBC ain't got no money.
To try to win a purse bid situation against Golden Boy, I think they would sooner just let the belt go. Let Gervonta Davis go back to being a champion in recess, like what the WBA called him earlier this year. They's the ones that said it.
Let him go back to being a champion in recess and let the belt go to Floyd Schofield so that he can defend it. Floyd Schofield, who has only boxed for all of 1 round in the last 12 months. They need to get this guy a fight. We're 6 months into the new year, and he still hasn't fought. Waiting out this situation?
Golden Boy Promotions has not one, but 2 prized stallions in the lightweight division that are set to become champions very soon. There is Floyd Schofield, but there is also William Zepeda, who's going to be boxing Lamont Roach for the vacant WBC title in the not-so-distant future. If he wins, those 2 titles go to Golden Boy.
If they do you think they'll try to unify them?
Not if the Schofields have anything to say about it. Getting an alphabet title for the first time, for them, is less about unifying titles and becoming undisputed and more about having an extra bargaining chip to ask for more money, as stated. These guys are already insufferable now without a belt. Just imagine how they're going to be with one. I don't anticipate that if the Schofields get the WBA title on Monday, they're going to move to unify it with the winner of Zepeda versus Roach.
Or Raymond Murataya, or Abdullah Mason, or the winner of this fight. I think they're just going to sit on that belt, hold it hostage, making mostly voluntary defenses with the occasional mandatory, but I don't think they're going to move to unify, not based on what their asking price would be.
So I'm not surprised that Gervonta Davis versus Floyd Schofield has all but fallen apart, and the title's going to now go to Floyd. Gervonta Davis was a quasi-retired fighter before we got to this point.
If he wasn't interested in redeeming himself against Lamont Roach, why would he be interested in fighting Floyd Schofield?
Finally, the WBA, who now has 43 world champions, promises fewer again for the fourth time in over a decade. The World Boxing Association says it wants fewer champions. Boxing heard the same thing in 2013. Over a decade later, the organization is making the same pledge again with 43 champions on its books. The WBA announced this week that it remains committed to reducing the number of world champions while moving to tighten its championship structure.
Why do they want to do it this time?
I'm not complaining, by the way. I'm just saying that it's a deviation from what they normally do. Normally, they want to have as many different WBA titles out there as possible. Why all of a sudden do they want to reduce that number? The statement read, "The WBA remains committed to its goal of reducing the number of world champions, and our recent decisions continue to move in that direction. In this regard, it is important to note that 3 recently announced bouts have not been approved by the WBA as of this date. Following recent media reports regarding bantamweight, minimum weight, and light flyweight world title fights, the WBA clarifies that these bouts have not yet received official approval. A formal statement from the Championships Committee will follow shortly." For longtime observers, the announcement sounded familiar. In 2013, WBA Vice President Gilberto Mendoza told World Boxing News the organization was reviewing the future of its controversial super and interim championships and considering ways to simplify the title structure. The same conversation resurfaced in 2021 when World Boxing News removed recognition of the WBA from its champion listings over concerns surrounding multiple champions and title designations. Recognition was later restored after improvements were made. By 2024, the champion count was climbing again, now in 2026.
They didn't mention when the Association of Boxing Commissions ordered the WBA to reduce the number of titles they have in circulation. That was fairly recent.
Recent years, I think that was 3 or 4 years ago they ordered them to do that, and they were doing it for a while. Then before you knew it, there were more interim, more gold, more regular, and more super titles in circulation. Currently, the number has climbed to 43 active WBA champions with different versions of what's supposed to be the same title. Now, once again, the WBA is promising fewer champions. That is where the latest pledge faces its biggest challenge after climbing 55% in recent years. The WBA currently recognizes 43 title holders across its divisions, including super, regular, interim, recess, and WBA Gold designations. Only weeks ago, World Boxing News documented how the total had risen from 27 champions in June of 2024 to 43 in June of 2026.
Bear in mind, there are only 18 weight classes. How could the WBA have 43 reigning champions in just 18 divisions? Not even counting everybody else's champions at that.
Former WBO president Paco Veracel recently described the WBA championship structure as a joke after bantamweight champion Seiya Tsutsumi publicly admitted he was unsure where he stood in the title picture.
Yeah, after the WBA fucked him over.
Up until recently, he was the reigning WBA bantamweight champion, but the WBA, all on their own, decided to label him a champion in recess so that the full title could go to Antonio Vargas, who then lost it to Bam Rodriguez, leaving Seiya Tsutsumi out in the cold, especially now if they're gonna phase out champions in recess.
Well, there goes his chance to win his title back.
The timing is interesting, as proposed changes to the Ali Act would limit sanctioning bodies to one world title per division in the United States. If that ever happens, the days of multiple champions in the same weight class could be numbered.
We're talking about per organization. The WBA and the WBC would be most affected by this, since they're the ones who insist on having so many different versions of the same title from the same two organizations. The WBO and the IBF,
they don't have the assembly line of belts that the WBA and the WBC do. Boxing heard this promise already from the WBA in 2013, and heard it again in 2021, then again in 2024. Now, with 43 champions on the books, it is hearing it for a fourth time. After 13 years, 4 reform drives and 43 champions, the WBA has reached the point where only results matter.
is this because they feel pressured by the Ali Revival Act to phase out all these secondary titles? Because the Ali Revival Act is really only a thing in the United States. In the UK, Australia, parts of Asia, it's not a thing.
Theoretically, they would still be able to mass-produce secondary titles while operating in those regions, just not in the United States. Or does the United States represent so much to them monetarily, they feel they have to play ball?
I don't know what it is specifically, I just know that it's a good thing. I know that it's better for boxing if you don't have as many guys running around with as many titles, because it is confusing.
But if they are going to limit how many titles they have in circulation, does that not hit them in the pocket? Will that not affect their revenue stream? Because they're not handing out these titles like Halloween candy for no reason. They're getting sanctioning fees from all these fighters holding all these titles.
Is that gonna fuck up their money?
They might have worked it out to where they charge a higher percentage of a fighter's purse depending on where they're ranked. Say, the guys in the top 20 aren't paying as big a fee as the guys in the top 10, and the guys in the top 10 aren't paying as big a fee as the guys in the top 5. Maybe they'll work it out that way to make up for the money they're losing mass-producing belts.
Not mass-producing belts anymore.
With what could be a fluctuating percentage that changes depending on where a fighter is ranked, how much they have to kick out to the WBA. It could be that way. You could see why they were doing what they were doing. They get a little bit more money from the fighters. At the same time, each promotional outfit gets their own WBA champion.
With no need for cross-promotional fights, forcing this guy to fight that guy because each guy's got his own WBA title, allowing them to stay away from each other. I believe that the WBA used to do this as a favor.
More specifically as a favor to the PBC, since the largest concentration of WBA titles was over there at the PBC, who have long held a dubious relationship with the WBA. Now, the WBA, for the fourth time, is changing their stance to reduce the number of titles they've got,
The number of champions, and we'll see if it sticks.
or if it doesn't. How long will it take them to roll out their assembly line of belts?